Hello chess fans, this is Rick from Chess to Impress with round 12 of the 2017 Tata Steel Tournament played on Saturday the 28th of January. And things start to heat up as we get very close to the finish line. Wesley So from the United States of America is the sole leader after 11 rounds. He was half a point ahead of Wei Yi, who he played in the 12th round. It would be logical to cover that game, but after 20 moves all pieces apart from the rooks were swapped, and 12 moves later there was a move repetition. It was not a very exciting game, it was quite a solid draw. So Wesley So keeps his half point advantage over Wei Yi, but let's look at other games. Let's look at the pursuers of Wesley So and Wei Yi. I'll show you the game between Aronian and Van Wely, and I show you the finish of the game Eljanov-Carlsen. Let's start with Aronian-Van Wely. Aronian a full point behind Wesley So. Let's see if he could get closer. Aronian white, Van Wely black. d4, knight f6, c4, g6, f3, bishop g7, e4, castle, knight c3 and d6. We have the same-ish variation of the King's Indian, not an opening Aronian usually plays, but as he said, we'll get at least an interesting game. Knight g to e2, a6 and knight g3. Aronian said he checked this a little bit before the game, this variation. He said it's not a very impressive idea, but it's okay. Knight bd7, bishop e2. In the same-ish, often white wants to checkmate black with bishop e3, queen d2 and then h4. But not in this setup. As Aronian said, he wanted to play a strategical game, not a crazy attack on the black king. c6, castling, b5, bishop e3, rook b8 and rook f2. This is one of these grandmaster moves which are very difficult to understand for normal souls. Aronian said he found this move at the board. He said he didn't prepare much as he was tired from yesterday's game. He had a nap before the game, and he said this move, one idea of this move is to possibly transfer the knight from g3 to d2 or maybe to e3 later. He does not want to put the black knight to e2 as per the theory of the superfluous knight. Knights on c3 and e2, they are really stepping on each other's toes. So one possible idea behind rook f2 is to vacate the f1 square for the knight. It's a very deep move. Queen c7, rook c1, b4, kicking the knight, knight a4, c5, d5, and now Aronian expected Van Wely to play e7, e5, but Van Wely played e7, e6. b3, rook e8. Black has decided to play a Benoni structure. First, Aronian thought, well, how can he do this? Because I have so much time to maneuver and I have the c4 square. And that's indeed a square that Black wants to use in the Benoni. But then Aronian saw that it was not so easy as it first looked. Queen d2, e takes d5, c takes d5, knight b6. The knights were swapped, queen takes back, and here Aronian explained that he expected Black's plan would be a6, a5, then bishop a6, and then a4. He has to play on the queen side, while White wants to play on the king side. Bishop h6 and bishop h8. If Black knew what this bishop on h6 would do to him later, he probably would have traded it. bishop h8 and h3. Bishop d7. According to Aronian, he said this was a very strange move. The a5, bishop a6 idea is better. But his explanation here was that this could be that Van Wely was changing plan on purpose. Aronian had thought for a long time about the h2, h3 move, and Van Wely must have thought that the long think must have been about the a5, bishop a6, and then a4 maneuver. So choosing a different plan, which he played very quickly after only 1 minute of thought, this is sometimes a good idea to throw the opponent off. Of course, this is all high-level psychology at the chessboard. Bishop c4, bishop b5, and a very instructive move, king h1. As Aronian explained, he wanted to avoid ideas with knight d7 and bishop d4, so he decided to put the king safe and see what black's play was. Queen d8. Aronian explained this move as playing for tricks. One of the ideas might be to, if white plays his plan with f4 and e5, to have an option of moving the queen to h4. A possible idea. But bishop g5 is annoying. Now the knight is pinned, and rook b7 is a very strange move according to Aronian. He really had to react to this bishop g5 move, and it would have been better to try bishop g7 and then kick the bishop with h7, h6. Because now queen f4, and now the pin gets really annoying. And here Aronian said that he already did not see any defense for black. He thought he was winning here. Queen e7 from Van Wely. Queen h4, making room for the f-pawn. f3, f4, and e4, e5, and f4, f5. Those are white's plans. Queen e5. And now Aronian said it's tempting to play f4, but then the queen can go to d4, and if you then play knight e2, there's queen b2, and now black is actually better. For starters, the a-pawn is going to fall. So he played rook d2, bishop takes c4, and now he played f4. And instead of retreating the queen to e7, Van Wely decides on a very spectacular queen sacrifice. Queen takes e4, knight takes e4, knight takes e4, rook e1, and here Van Wely missed his last chance. He should have played bishop b5, then he only has 2 pieces for the queen, but as Aronian said, if he can play f7, f5, then he might be even better. Let's have a look. If white would have played rook dd1 to take the rook away from the attack by the knight, then f5, and here, as I said, Aronian thought black was better. The computer thinks it's about even, but here 2 pieces are enough compensation for the queen, because look at those pieces. The 2 bishops are beautifully shining through white's position, and the knight on e4 is an absolute monster. So that was after bishop b5, but Van Wely decided to play bishop c3. And here Aronian played the very strong f4, f5. The queen is participating again. The rook on e4 is now hanging, attacked by both rook and queen and only defended by the rook. Bishop takes d2, played by Van Wely, and Aronian just took back. Bishop take d5, protecting the knight, and now the very strong rook takes e4, and that move is just taking away the last defender of the dark squares around black's king. Bishop takes e4. If you take with the rook instead of with the bishop, Then there is queen d8 check, king g7 and f6 checkmate. And taking with the bishop does not work either because of the winning move queen f6. One last spy check on g2 from Van Wely, and Aronian had to stay awake, but he played the right move. He played king g1. If you take that bishop, then suddenly the game is even again because of rook e2, check, king f3, and you take that bishop of the dark squares, and now we have an equal position. But after king g1, the bishop of the dark squares stays alive, and there's nothing black can do against the maneuver. Bishop h6, and then queen g7, checkmate. An important win for Aronian, who got half a point closer to Wesley So and is only half a point behind now, with one round to go. Let's see how the world champion got on. Magnus Carlsen was also a full point behind Wesley So before the start of the round, and he was fighting for his last chance to win the tournament. He was black against Pavel Eljanov, and they played a stonewall Dutch defense, and this is the position after 52 h2 h3. Eljanov is white, Carlson is black, and as you can see, the world champion is a pawn up in a rook endgame, and h2 h3 was a mistake. Black is winning probably anyway, but after h2 h3 it was easier for him to take the full point. Let's see how Carlson went about it. Rook a4, attacking the pawn on a2, and white now decided not to defend passively. Let's have a look if he had done that. Rook b2, just to protect the pawn. Then there is rook a3 check, king g2, you have to keep protecting the pawn on h3. And then black's king comes in, king h4, and that pawn on h3 will fall. Because if you try to play rook b3, for example, then it's really simple. Rook takes, a takes, g4, you have to take, and the king takes, and black calmly walks to the b pawn while white cannot follow him because he has to keep an eye on the h pawn. Simple win for black. So that's an example of that passive defense will not work. So Eljanov took his last chance and played rook c6. His idea is to keep white's king in prison as long as he can. Carlson gave check, king g2, and then took the pawn with check. King c3, a4, rook a6, just marking time, keeping that king on h5 in its cage. a3, king f3, rook b2. That was Carlson's solution. He just gives up the a pawn because he's going to win the h pawn. King g3, a2, king f3. Carlson now finally forced white to take the pawn by queening. Rook takes, and here comes the king. Eljanov resigned here. Why did he resign? Well, to stop losing the pawn on h3 straight away, you have to play rook h1, but then rook b3 check, king g2, the only move to not lose that pawn, but after rook g3 check, you have to move your king, and you're going to lose that pawn anyway. And with two connected pawns, the win is elementary technique, and for a grandmaster, not very difficult. So Carlson won as well, and he also is only half a point behind Wesley So before the last round. It's going to be very exciting. The results of round 12, we saw the two decided games, Aronian-Van Wely and Eljanov-Carlsen. The other 5 games were drawn. The standings after round 12, Wesley So still in the lead, but 3 players are very close behind him. Wei Yi, Carlson and Aronian. The pairing for the last round. The games in blue will still be important for first place. Aronian will have black against Andreikin, Wei Yi will have white against Wojtaszek, and Wesley So will be black against Nepomniachtchi. Magnus Carlsen will play Sergei Karyakin, and we all think back of that World Championship match they played in November 2016. Can Carlson overturn Karyakin and still keep a chance to win the tournament? Of course, if Wesley So wins with black, he's the winner outright, but if he doesn't win, there could very well be a joint winner, and that means a tie-break with shorter time controls. Let's see what happens. Round 13 will be played on Sunday, the 29th of January, and I will be here when it's all over to tell you what happened. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up, please subscribe, and please spread the word if you like the channel. This is Rick from Chess to Impress. Thank you for watching.